So we're in a great time where we get to dig deeper.
Mm.
And I think I would dare to say that most all of us who are on this journey abroad, not only us healing ourselves, we get to heal the planet, you
Mm.
know? Um, and once we start realizing our power,
Mhm.
it's like game over. I think people can, for example, when the Black Panther movie came out, people don't realize that the reason why it was so impactful is because we saw ourselves differently, even in a fictional, movie,
We were all
right?
empowered. We
We
all
were
left feeling like
empowered.
superheroes. Yes.
Exactly. So can
Yeah.
you imagine if we acted like we had that energy all the time? Like the planet would shift.
Unbelievable.
The
Yeah.
planet would shift. And I think that that's one, like, if you are watching this and you're abroad, like, just know that you can do that. Not to say you can't do it if you're in America, but I understand why it's more challenging because as a mindset coach, I understand that when we change our environment, it puts us in putting yourself in an environment to win is going to make you win. It's why we feel so rejuvenated after a retreat. It's why we feel rejuvenated when we're on vacation. It's because environment is changing. It's often more difficult to change in the same environment that's causing you pain. So I understand it's not impossible, but it can be more difficult,
Mhm.
right? If you are in in that experience, I would encourage you to go into nature as much as you can. Yeah, environment is the only is one of the one ways for changing a behavior. Um,
Mm.
it impacts our ability to change. So this is like research based, and I not that I need research to say it, but as I think of the correlation of living abroad,
Yeah.
I ha- I have more understanding as to why, let's say, if you are in said um, environment, why it might be harder to then be like to think a certain way, right? You really have to be in and that I think now I truly understand, I think when you understand like the human, like how the human mind works and just like the psychology of it, it
Mm.
makes me understand why things happen the way that they do. So even if I'm not using it from the spiritual element, right? It's why being in a group program, why being in a mentorship. Like sometimes when we think about it, when I used to hear it, it would just seem like I'm trying to be salesy and I'm just trying to like, you could think about it in that way. Like I'm just trying to sell you a program or whatever. But I now understand these are all curtailed environment. It's like why we go to church, for example, or why we go to like a conference. Like anyone that's thriving in life, they're in some kind of environment
Mhm.
because we've been created for greatness, but we've been conditioned based on whether our traumas. And if you get into like the nitty-gritty of understanding, let's say, epigenetics, and you understand that ancestry, especially us as Black folks, right, there are certain traumas that are just like in our body that
Just
we
living
don't even
in our
that
body.
we that's carried on, right? So you're either going to be in an environment that's going to enforce these things. So whether that's thinking like I'm limited, like I can't have, and of course, evidence is when we're seeing with our 3D eyes. That means what I see in front of me. So if I'm seeing someone being gunned down by a police officer, if I'm seeing racism, then we can keep affirming that as our experience. But
Mm.
now, when I allow myself to, let's say, be in, let's say, China or be in Thailand or be in the UAE, be in Europe, and now I have like a new environment, I can give myself the time and space to start thinking other thoughts or,
Got
behaviors.
new ideas. New ideas. You're exposed to new things, new information, right?
New information, right? Because every day we're either it's kind of like, if you're going to like you're going to enforce a new pattern, but it's
Mm.
easier to do that when you're in a different environment. It's just factual, you
Mm.
know. That's why you have like, you know, and it doesn't help like if you're, let's say, in the US and all you do is sit and watch the news. It's like
Mm,
you're going to keep confirming like a certain thing.
mm,
Um, and if you're not aware of it, and I think because we all want belonging, sometimes we put ourselves out of belonging. We might put ourselves in the spaces that don't liberate us, that don't free us,
mm.
that they keep us limited.
Put yourself in spaces that liberate your mind,
Yeah.
that free you and expand
Yeah.
your capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And the thing about unlearning is actually more challenging than learning, like learning something new.
yeah.
Because depending on how old you are, depending, that's how many years you've, how many weeks, how many hours you've had this idea.
Hmm.
So it's not like a one-off. It's kind of like what I talked about with meditation or mindfulness. Like these aren't things you just do one day and then all of a sudden, like I am now, like I said to you, I am now in like, you know, there's the phases of this work. I am now in the phase of like I'm knowing, like I know this is true. Like I'm not even trying to convince you. It's like I know this. But it took me a while. My spiritual and understanding started like in 2007 or something.
Yeah, you had to reprogram. It's like reprogramming,
Yes.
building new habits, reprogramming your mindset, you
Yes.
teaching your body and your nervous system a new way of being.
I
It's
mean, even I mean, and it for me, it's like and now I understand why um what's her name? Bell Hooks. Um, what's his name? He was in Turkey. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm having a slip. Okay, I'm thinking about these very popular Black authors, you
Mhm,
know, who a lot of their writing is around the lines of liberation and
mhm.
peace and also the struggle, but the lens that they were able to discuss these things were so different because they were no longer in America.